Picture this. It's 53 BC, Rome. A man walks into the Senate chamber wearing a toga worth more than most Romans earn in a lifetime. His name is Marcus Licinius Crassus. He owns 1/3 of the city, literally. When a building burns down, his private fire brigade shows up. But here's the twist. They don't put out the fire. They negotiate. Sell me your property right now, or we watch it burn. Most people sell. Within hours, Crassus owns another city block. By the time he dies, he's worth roughly 169 million ounces of gold. That's over $340 billion in today's money. Richer than Musk, richer than Bezos. And he's just one of Rome's banking families. So here's the question nobody asks in history class. How did private families gain more power than emperors 2,000 years before the Rothschilds were even born? Let's set the stage. It's the late Roman Republic, around 200 BC. Rome just defeated Carthage. They've conquered Spain. They're expanding like crazy. And with expansion comes something Rome's never dealt with before: massive wealth extraction. Spanish silver mines alone produce 200 tons of silver per year, grain from Egypt, olive oil from North Africa, slaves from Gaul. But here's the problem. The Roman government doesn't have a central bank, no federal reserve, no institutional banking system. They have tax collectors called publicani, but they need someone to finance the empire. Enter the argentarii. Private bankers, family operations. These weren't your neighborhood moneylenders. These were sophisticated financial dynasties who figured out something revolutionary. If you control the money supply, you control the empire, even if you never wear a crown. So how did this work? Let me break it down. Step 1, the tax farming scheme. Rome doesn't collect taxes directly. Too messy, too slow. Instead, they auction off tax collection rights to private companies called societas publicanorum. Think of it like this. The government says, Gaul owes us 10 million denarii this year. Who wants to collect it? The banking families bid. Let's say they bid 9 million. They pay Rome 9 million up front. Then they go collect the 10 million from Gaul. They keep the 1 million difference as profit. Except they don't collect 10 million. They collect 15 million. Because who's going to stop them? They have private armies. They control the local magistrates. The government gets their 9 million, the banking families pocket 6 million, and the provinces get crushed. Step 2, currency manipulation. Here's where it gets insane. Roman coins are supposed to be pure silver. That's the standard. But the banking families start doing something subtle. They melt down old coins, mix in copper, remint them with less silver content. A denarius that was 95% silver becomes 85%, then 75%. Most people can't tell the difference, but now the bankers can mint more coins from the same amount of silver. It's not inflation yet, it's proto-quantitative easing, and they're doing it privately. Step 3, the credit monopoly. Want to build an aqueduct? You need credit. Want to finance a grain shipment from Egypt? Credit. Want to fund a political campaign for consul? Definitely credit. The banking families control all of it. Interest rates in Rome range from 4% to 48%, depending on risk. For context, Roman law caps interest at 12%. They charge way more. They just hide it in fees and contract structures. And here's the kicker. They're lending to both sides of civil wars. Crassus funds Pompey's campaign, also lends to Julius Caesar, hedges his bets. When Caesar crosses the Rubicon and civil war breaks out, the bankers are financing both armies. Let that sink in. They literally profit from Rome destroying itself. But here's the thing about unregulated financial power. It always collapses eventually. 63 BC, the Catiline conspiracy. A senator named Catiline is drowning in debt. He owes millions to the banking families. So he hatches a plan. Overthrow the republic, cancel all debts, redistribute land. Cicero exposes the plot. Catiline's supporters are executed. But the financial stress doesn't go away because half of Rome's elite is in the same position, buried in debt to the bankers. 49 BC, Caesar crosses the Rubicon. Civil war erupts. Caesar marches on Rome. The Senate flees. And one of Caesar's first moves, he forces creditors to accept payment in devalued property instead of cash. Translation, he's screwing the bankers. debt relief for the masses, political points for Caesar, losses for the banking families. The banking dynasties just learned a harsh lesson. No matter how much wealth you accumulate, political power trumps financial power. Crassus himself dies in 53 BC, trying to invade Parthia. Why? Because even with all his wealth, he's desperate for military glory, for legitimacy. The Parthians kill him, pour molten gold down his throat as mockery. Here's your precious gold. By the time Augustus becomes emperor in 27 BC, the banking families are neutered. Augustus creates a centralized grain supply, regulated currency, direct taxation. The age of private financial empires is over. Sort of. So what's the lesson here? Why does this matter 2,000 years later? Because the exact same pattern repeats throughout history. Private banking families accumulate enormous power during periods of expansion. They finance governments, manipulate currency, control credit. Then they overreach. Political authority reasserts itself, sometimes violently. The Medici family, Renaissance Florence, banking dynasty, financed popes and kings, controlled Florence for generations, eventually exiled when political winds shifted. The Fuggers, 16th century Germany, financed the Holy Roman Empire, controlled silver and copper mining, creditors to emperors, went bankrupt when Spain defaulted on debts 4 times. The Rothschilds, 18th and 19th century Europe. Okay, now we're talking about the family everyone mentions. But here's what's interesting. The Rothschilds studied history. They learned from Rome's mistakes. Mayor Amschel Rothschild sent his 5 sons to 5 different European capitals: Frankfurt, London, Paris, Vienna, Naples. Diversification, hedging, never put all your power in one political system. They financed the Napoleonic Wars, both sides, just like Crassus. Legend says Nathan Rothschild made a fortune on advanced knowledge of Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo. Probably exaggerated, but the principle holds. Information asymmetry plus capital equals power. The Rothschilds built their own intelligence network, faster than government messengers. They knew bond prices would move before anyone else. Sound familiar? That's because modern high-frequency trading does the exact same thing. Millisecond advantages, information speed. But here's where the Roman lesson comes back. Political power always reasserts itself. By the 20th century, governments learned. They created central banks, monopolized currency issuance. Private families can still get rich, but they can't control the money supply anymore, at least not officially. Modern asset managers like BlackRock manage $10 trillion. They're shareholders in nearly every major corporation. They don't mint coins, but they influence markets, policy, elections. Different mechanism, same dynamics. And just like Rome, there's tension. Occupy Wall Street, calls for wealth taxes, antitrust legislation. The political system is starting to push back. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. The families change, the currencies change, but the fundamental power struggle between private wealth and public authority, that's been going on for 2,000 years. So here's the unsettling truth. Financial dynasties don't last forever, but they last long enough to reshape civilizations. Crassus bought a third of Rome with fire brigade extortion. The Rothschilds built an empire on carrier pigeons and war bonds. Today's banking families use algorithms and lobbyists. The tools evolve, the game stays the same. Control the money, control the narrative, control the future. Until you don't. Because empires fall, currencies collapse, and political power always comes for financial power eventually. The question isn't whether it happens. The question is who's playing the game right now. And do you even know their names? So here's my question for you. If you had to name the 3 most powerful banking families operating today, not the obvious billionaires, but the families who actually control global finance infrastructure, who would you say? Drop your answers in the comments. Let's see if we can follow the money. And if you want me to make a follow-up video tracking modern financial dynasties, let me know. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.